Hello everybody, it's me Luton's Deadpool, and again I'm here at the lovely Luton Library Theatre. I hope you all had a great holiday season. You ate loads of food, you got all the presents you wanted to do, and most importantly you didn't see Santa because that ruins the magic. Oh, before I forget, we've also got some wonderful things going on here at the Library Theatre in January. So first up we've got Phage Star Showcase on the 18th of January, and we've also got Screwed on the 23rd of January. Trust me, this is going to be a fantastic time to get down to Library Theatre, show your support and see some fantastic shows. I love you, Luton. Anyway, welcome to the Luton's Deadpool podcast, and today I've got a very, very cool guest. His name is Paolo, and Paolo has authored a book. He's a local guy. He's a massive mental health advocate. I've known Paolo now for a couple of years, and I can't speak higher of him. I'm really glad that he's joined me today. So, hello, Paolo. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm Deadpool. I'm awesome all the time. But yeah, no, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah,
and
no
just,
problem.
you know, obviously we've done lots of group stuff with X-Force, and, you know, we worked together throughout Comic-Con as well a couple of times now. And I've always found you a fascinating person. Really like what you've done with writing this book. I hope we can talk about a little bit of that today. We can talk a little bit about your own mental health journey as well, because I think it's really important, and how it shaped you as an author. And then try and see what we can tell people in Luton of how to get on this and become an author. And, you know, it seems a bit scary to some people, but you can kind of lead the way and show them how to do it. So anyways, please tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing here.
Okay, so my name's Paolo Trepiccione. Don't try and spell it, you won't. I not quite born and bred in Luton. I was actually born in Bedford and lived there for the first 2 years of my life, but the other 39 years I've lived in Luton. I have done a few different things after I left sort of school and college. Just kind of drifted around, and then I think I finally settled on my calling, really, of being, like you say, a mental health advocate and an author.
Cool. That's my fault.
What would you like me to
I
elaborate?
was supposed to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah. What would you like me to elaborate on?
Well, I mean, you know, growing up in Luton has its challenges, right? In terms of how it shapes you. What's your journey in Luton been like so far?
So, I lived until I was 28. I lived in sort of central Luton, sort of Kingsway area, which, you know, I'm sure the locals know the Kingsway area.
What would you say to people that don't know it?
It's an interesting area. It's very densely populated. It's got a kind of, it's like a microcosm of like sort of inner city London. It's a lot scarier than it looks. There's actually quite a tight community in that area. And, you know, obviously, despite being of differing racial backgrounds, you know, everyone just kind of got on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to say there weren't problems, because, you know, like anywhere, there's going to be problems. But, yeah, I mean, as a kind of socially awkward child who became a socially awkward adult, you know, it was kind of ideal for me, because if there were days I just wanted to be left alone, then I could just, you know, be left alone. If I wanted to go and play cricket in someone's car park somewhere with a bunch of lads, I could go and do that, which we did. We had the Kingsway Park is still there. You know, we went and played football there after school. You know, it was
good memories.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my childhood wasn't perfect, but it was reasonably atypical, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that your life in Luton has shaped like your own thoughts about mental health advocacy and your authoring life now as well?
I'd say yes. In terms of mental health advocacy, so I didn't really, you know, like most children into teenagers, into late teenagers, I didn't really think too much about my mental health until it deteriorated. And I'm going back 20 odd years, maybe slightly less than that, and services back then were more widely available, but I'd say not quite as not quite as varied as they are now. So there was more availability, but less variety in what you could get.
Yeah.
So I was put down the typical kind of route of seeing a GP who referred me to. I was referred to numerous counsellors, one or two psychologists, and then obviously things kind of snowballed from there. And one of the things that kind of became glaringly apparent to me as my life went on was that I did have something, that I'm not neurotypical. I am what's now considered neurodivergent, but back then I was just an odd child.
Yeah. Which there's nothing wrong with.
No, but to relate it to your question, how did it shape things for me? So I went to Chorney Boys, which again, if you're local, you'll know that name very well. Now, back then, I can't comment now, but I know back then, average class sizes were sort of high 20s, low 30s, and I was a badly behaved, inattentive child in a room full of badly behaved, inattentive children. They were not interested in what was going on up here. There was no time to be interested. So that kind of shaped me in so much that it left me with a kind of feeling of no one really cares. And like I said, the repeated frustrations of not getting the help I needed left me with a no one seems to care feeling. And then when things in my life kind of blew apart at the beginning of 2021 for reasons we may get into, it became more apparent, obviously this is some time after my early brushes with the mental health sector, that now it wasn't even widely available. And what was there was, how can I put this politically? It was rationed for people that they deemed who needed it the most. And by needed it the most, I mean if you did not present a clear danger to yourself or others, there was nothing wrong with you. Here's some pills, see you later.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of put things back together for myself, for my own mental health, and in the wake of the things that had happened early that year, which meant I had to become very well read in the subject matter of mental health. So I kind of went for the whole sort of diaspora of, I looked at depth psychology, I looked at spirituality, I looked at self-help, and I just kind of I looked at all these things. I kind of put like a working model of, okay, well, this is what I need to do to kind of get myself back to functionality. And I did it. I got myself functional again. But as I kind of felt, being functional isn't enough.
Yeah.
Because I was functional before, and that was essentially equivalent to sleepwalking through life.
Yeah.
Which I didn't want to do anymore.
You're like a zombie, essentially.
And yeah, I mean, the worst part is I was not, like so many other people, I just wasn't aware that, that's what I was doing. I was just, I was just phoning in my life.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can definitely relate to, times when it's like, when you just get a moment of clarity and then you realise that you've been sort of autopiloting for a long time, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've just smelt the roses for the first time in I don't even know how long. It's a powerful thing to notice.
So one of the consistents of my life and sort of a through thread of things for me is, because as I said, I am like, full disclosure, I am on the spectrum. I was diagnosed with Asperger's. Yes, it still exists. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't.
I was just about to say, isn't that an old term now?
No, I refuse to accept that it's been deleted from the DSM and stuff like that. It's because it was done for political reasons. It wasn't done to help anybody.
Well, what do you mean?
Culture has gone in a very interesting direction, I'd say maybe in the last decade, where people equate words with violence out of being overly sheltered, I feel. And I don't know if you're aware of this, where the origins of the Asperger's subsect of autism came from. The guy who, I'm going from memory here and I'm paraphrasing, but the guy who essentially coined that particular diagnosis was tied with some very not nice people in Germany during a quite contentious period in history.
Yep.
So, which, as a result, means obviously anything he's ever done is terrible and should be deleted from existence and scrubbed. And that's the modern mindset, which I do not bow to whatsoever. So I hang on to the term out of sheer stubbornness. It doesn't make any difference to me. I'm on the spectrum regardless.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's a difference between someone who's Asperger's then in your eyes.
Yeah, I think I think where that comes from is, and I do agree with the. So there used to be a thing of you're either high functioning or low functioning. I never agreed with that because to imply someone is low functioning, you can extrapolate. What
that's pretty nasty to say that. Yeah,
but and that's not a good thing to say. And I agree with all that kind of terminology being swept away, but getting rid of a specific subset of that diagnosis because of the man's history, I just don't agree with it at all. So because I am on the spectrum, because I am socially awkward and I struggle a little bit with prolonged social interaction, I used to sort of retreat into myself quite a lot, and I used to read excessively as a child. Like even in rooms full of people, I'm just book out, just sit there and I'll just ignore the world.
Yeah.
So I always had a kind of draw to storytelling and fiction, worlds and universes and characters that were not my own. And this kind of evolved into an interest in role-play games, tabletop role-play games. So the most common of which you'd probably know, Dungeons and Dragons. There are plenty of others, but we'll use that as the example. And then I kind of discovered a world of what I consider collaborative storytelling. So you're telling a story in real time with other people. Yeah, there's a rule set involved, but for me the important part is the storytelling. So I discovered, I guess I'm a natural storyteller, and I have a group that I role play with every Friday evening, most Friday evenings, and they all said to me, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." People were always on at me, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." So late 2021, after I kind of got things functional again, I caved to peer pressure and went, "Okay, you know what? I'm gonna write a book." I wrote what I later learned was a manuscript. Now we'll get into that when I talk to people through how to write and get published.
Yeah. But it's Forever Connected.
Forever Connected is the book in question.
Great name, by the way. Really great name. I really like the name, especially with what it's about. I mean, straight away it tells you almost automatically. It doesn't necessarily tell you the genre, but it tells you automatically what it's to do with. So
yeah, I mean, it's very hard for me to, because people ask me, what genre do you write? And it's like, it's kind of fantasy, but it deals with kind of the meta themes. Like that particular book deals with the meta themes of kind of bereavement, loss, destruction of life as you understand it, and the kind of rebuilding thereof. Now, I will always say, and I will champion what I was told. Someone told me that the best therapy you can ever do is writing, and it's so therapeutic as a process because you are literally getting everything out of your head onto paper, so you can look at it, you can interact with it, you can explode it out and out and out until there's nothing left. So writing this manuscript, as I was at the time, the mental health breakthroughs I was getting in real time, I can't stress that enough to people, that these breakthroughs were coming through in real time, that I was sitting there every weekend committing 8,000 words to paper, so, roughly 4,000 words every Saturday and Sunday, 3 or 4 hours a day. I was just writing, but the journey it took me on through what had happened and the understanding of it and marrying it with all the stuff that I kind of researched, and so the manuscript and later the book was essentially the collation and crystallization of what I'd experienced, how I'd overcome it, with the intent of someone can pick this up. You can read it as a story and enjoy the story. I like to hope, but you can also take away from it, I'm going through something similar. This is how he got through it, the author. Some of this works for me, some of it won't, and you know, I can get started on my own healing journey, because that was the point of the first book, was to essentially document the beginning of a healing journey.
So obviously, without giving too much away about the book, because for me, I've still not read the book, and I'm very, very sorry that I have not read the book. I'm very sorry, but it's on my Christmas list. My missus knows to get Santa to get me the book this Christmas, so don't you worry. And I'm advising every single other person out there, because I've heard loads about the book and what it's to do with, and I'm fascinated. I can't wait to get my hands on it, but. Can you just tell us a little bit, without giving away too much, of what the book's about and what the characters are and some of the themes?
So it follows two protagonists, so two main characters. One character exists in the real world, such as it is, and the other character exists in what appears to be a high fantasy fictional setting. And the chapters kind of jump between the two characters, and they lead very different lives. You know, the guy in the real world his experience is modelled very heavily after my own. So, you know, he's out of work, he's in a bad place, you know, he's just trying to stop himself descending deeper into the depression that's eating him alive. And the other character, the fictional character, he's gone on a journey to find a specific location to achieve a certain goal. So I don't want to give any spoilers away. And he essentially builds a party, a traditional party of characters. So for those who aren't familiar with that kind of terminology, so I think the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
So that would be an adventuring party. So he gathers like a party of characters on the way to this destination, and then he undergoes some trials. And as the book progresses, you kind of begin to understand why the two narratives are separate and how they begin to weave together, and why they weave together, and how they weave together. And by the end of it, they're aware of each other. And yeah, I mean, the last third of the book was where I'd say probably the most breakthroughs came through. So it's quite heavy at the start, because it has to be. The middle is I guess the bridge point, so that's your kind of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And then the last third of the book is the kind of, you know, the journey out of the tunnel, so to speak. So
it sounds really deep, man. I love it. You know, you've talked about it quite a bit at our group as well, and what we attend. And I have to say, it's like on Tuesday night just gone, as you were talking about, every single person in the room just lent in. And we were locked into what you were saying. And this wasn't even to do with this book. This is the next. We'll talk about the second one a little bit later. But just to go back into, you know, the book and the ideas that you're presenting within it, of kind of like there's an intersectionality between mental health and spirituality, right? So can you just talk a little bit more about what your views are on that and how it relates to the book?
So we've become quite a secular society in the West. You know, I mean, religion has kind of taken a back seat. You know, whether you want to admit it or not, that's entirely up to you. But the facts remain that we are becoming increasingly, or have become, very secular. We don't really believe in anything anymore. And I think we have suffered as a result. I think human beings need a belief in a greater power to drive them forward. You know, I mean, otherwise, you know, human beings have to believe in something. They have to not necessarily worship at, like, overtly, but they have to worship something. And the problem is, when we displace religion or faith or spirituality, however you want to conceptualize it, as soon as you displace that, what does the human mind start doing? It starts casting around, looking for something else to basically worship at.
Yeah, and that can be yourself, that can be money.
It could become the government.
Food,
it could become,
the government.
you know, so suddenly, you know, when, for example, a government makes questionable decisions, people don't question it, because it's like, well, you know, they're the
You're
government.
Our lords and masters.
They're all encompassing, all powerful, you know. And I had become like that, very much so, that I just didn't really believe in anything at all. And then because everything had just smashed apart so spectacularly, I think because all the noise in my head kind of died away, I was able to kind of understand actually there is something out there that's bigger. And I had a few, we'll call them experiences.
Okay.
I don't want to say anything that will get me in trouble.
Hey, this is the Luton's Deadpool podcast, man. It's already been said. It's already been said. I've been in trouble plenty of times. You say what you like.
I mean, plant medicine is still a bit frowned upon, understandably.
Yep.
But I had my biggest.
There are some benefits, though.
I'm a massive advocate of said. I consider it an alternative healing modality. It's not to be undertaken lightly, and should always be done if that's your intention, with someone who knows what they're doing. I had a massive breakthrough. This is going to be the first time I admit this aloud, so be privileged. I spent an afternoon with someone who bizarrely lives in this town, and I just found them in the most unusual way possible. But I spent an afternoon with this guy, and he introduced me to plant medicine, we'll call it. And for 3 or 4 hours, I was just not myself. I was the essence of Paolo, with the thoughts and the fears and everything else all just stripped away. And what I saw in that 3 or 4 hours is documented. It's summarized in one chapter of the book. I couldn't tell you exactly what happened, or where I was. I mean, I was somewhere else. And that kind of opened my mind up to understand that actually there is more than just this 3D world that we inhabit, and I think people, because they've forgotten that, it's why I think depression and angst and anxiety, why it's all so rampant now, because people have kind of lost connection with everything that we kind of needed, not in the sort of childish sense of, fending off, like, because a lot of people wrongly say that, religion's just what do they call it, like a
control system or something.
A control system, but also like a sort of proof, a sort of dam against fear of death, like and I don't think that's right at all. So what I learned was, I mean, like I said, I'm not sitting here telling you I'm some kind of spiritual guru that I know. I'm not going to start talking to you about like Reiki and chakra systems, and because I don't really know anything about it. I know people that know this stuff, and I do have very good in-depth conversations with them. But I know enough just from just something as simple as meditation. So that's something that I touch on in the book. It's such a simple thing that I sort of just sitting there quietly. Now my brain does not stop. So for me to sit there quietly, and I know your brain doesn't stop either, for me to sit there quietly for 10 minutes, I thought, yeah, this is a piece of piss. I'll get 10 minutes sitting there. My God. After 2 minutes, I'm like, I'm like a junkie. I'm just sitting there like,
need something to do, yeah.
But I got better at it, and I find that in those moments of still, I can sort of, I can drift off for sort of 20 minutes, half an hour at a time now without it being a major thing. And
you connect with something deeper, I think. You definitely do. I mean, for me, I've been going to church for the past 1.5 years now, and I had very similar experience. I had some experiences, and that changed my perception of things, and I started going to church. And I used to meditate, but now I pray, and I find the exact same benefits from both. There's a stillness and about the mind that you can achieve through this, which can open you up to so much more.
At the risk of sounding slightly controversial, I believe they're one and the same thing. I think prayer, meditation, however you do it, they're just methods. They're just methods to the same end point. The end point is the important part. How you achieve that. Because some people will do that just by being creative. It's like, someone who likes to paint or draw. can achieve that same state of connection to a higher power. They can just drift into that artwork, and they don't know where it's coming from. It's the same with my writing. When I read that first manuscript, I sat there so many days. I'm just like, man, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to write. 4 hours later, 4,000 words, bang.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd read back through it. I'm like, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
And this, because there's stuff that I'm like, why did I write that? Like someone who, and obviously I don't want to get too sort of woo-woo on this, but someone who's kind of a bit more leaning that way said that what you're doing is you're channeling. That's channeled writing, where you don't necessarily know where it's coming from. You're just basically the vehicle by which the writing is kind of brought into the world. That's cool if that's what you believe. I don't know exactly what it is, but you ask any creative and they'll tell you that they can. They call it when you're in the zone, when you're in the moment.
I think people don't like to talk of it too much in the sense of like it's like a puppeteer with strings attached to you, but there is something about when you get into the right channel, like with an airplane when they reach a certain altitude, it's easier to fly. You know what I mean? It's like there's a way to get into that state of being where things are easier, and I definitely think quietness and meditation, prayer, it's all very beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to believe in a sort of prescribed higher power of, you just need a kind of acceptance that there is more than just you, and there's more than just the world we inhabit. Because I think that's when people kind of have their sort of wake up moments where they're like, damn, everything that I'm not just my job, my house, my car, how much I earn, how much I don't earn. You're not just those. That's such a small and tiny fraction of what you are as a wider being. And when like I said, when a lot of those things were sort of blown up for me, that's when I understood. Because the noise was silenced, because it's all a distraction. And then I kind of realised, like, damn.
So that's interesting, because then what you've done is the parts of you that were probably less important, you've now shifted away, and the parts of you that are more important, you've now enlarged, right? Whereas for me, do you know what? I had a different kind of thing where, for me to get that same kind of feeling, I need to be humbled by like giantness, right? So one of the things for me, what I think is a large problem for people in society nowadays, why we've got these issues where we see ourselves as being bigger and more important necessarily in them small areas that you talk about, things that don't really matter. But when you see things like great things like the stars, right? Or when you see like the ocean, or you see like a giant mountain, or you see things that are just so much larger than what you are yourself, and then you start to really understand how big things are in comparison to you, and that we are just stardust. We're literal fragments, and we're only here for such a short amount of time, realistically, on the cosmic level. And for me, that gave me a drive to go, like, I need to make the most of this time, not be thinking about small things that don't matter. I need to understand that this is such a small chance I get to even survive out here, so I've got to really make the most of it. But it's kind of a similar thing what we've done, but it's like from slightly different angles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, you'll hear 1,000,001 different views on what exactly the purpose of a human life is. Some people say it's all just random. There's a theory called thrownness. Look that up. It's interesting. Where you're just thrown into a random life in a random point in time, and there's no kind of rhyme or reason to any of it. There are others that believe you're here to fulfill some cosmic purpose that you decided upon before you came here, and it all gets as deep and crazy as you want to get. I personally feel that the world is the world. There is an objective reality that we all inhabit, and I believe that the purpose of human life is to understand that you are in this objective reality, but how you interact with it, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Now, some people will just drift through this life and just go, everything is what it is. You know, some people who are born with like a silver spoon up their bum, who never have to work or no hardship, you know, will just breeze through life, and you know, they get to the end of it and it's like, yeah, cool. But I think the people who go through hardship, who, you know, have the most detrimental of experiences, I think they're the ones who kind of decide that being of service to others is the most important thing to them. And I feel that ranks very highly in the grand scheme of what's important, you know, being of service and help to others, because I don't believe in this notion of, you know, if someone's suffering, it's like, one of the things that will always get my back up is someone say, oh, it was meant to happen. Well, I mean, you don't know that.
Maybe someone was meant to get involved.
You know, and you know, trying to sort of hand wave people's misfortune away as, oh, you know, it was meant to happen. I don't. I think misfortune and things like that are a byproduct of the world we inhabit. It's not a nice place sometimes. You know, it's hard. You know, life is hard on us. You know, as biological beings, we're not the sturdiest of things. You know, we're subject to the elements. We're subject to disease. We get old. You know, bits of us start to break down.
Yeah.
So,
but for you view that the kind of like the community, like doing something for somebody, that's what matters, right?
Yeah, and I don't, and that can take the form of, you know, whether you're whether you want to write or create something that's inspirational to others, whether you want to, you know, be more sort of frontline about it all, which is something that I'm aiming to do.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, because obviously, you know, we're talking about some pretty cool shit, but I really want to talk with you about some of this stuff. So like we're doing, we've got a group that we both go to once a week on a Tuesday, which is called X-Force. It's for men's mental health, and it's a peer support group that any guy 18 plus can join, and it is literally that. It's a peer support group. It's not a formal group. It's not a let's go around the room and talk about our feelings. It's a meet up with guys who are there to just support each other. If somebody wants to talk about some stuff, then they're more than welcome to. If they'd just like to sit there and play some pool or table tennis and just chat and have some tea and biscuits and whatnot, then they can do that as well. But it's a really good group for me personally. But I mean, what drew you firstly to join X-Force?
So what drew me to X-Force was pretty much like you said, because it's peer support, and I'm very interested in peer support. I think so peer support has a few meanings to me. So it can be like what we are on Tuesday, just a group of guys who, you know, we sit and almost like have a round table about, you know, what might be bothering someone. You know, like we were talking this Tuesday just gone about some people's experience with like the police or working within the police, and
that was really interesting.
You know, and the stuff that kind of spun out from that was you know, was really interesting.
Yeah, because we had people from the two opposite sides of that situation. That was it's such a shame that we can't share that stuff with people. But it was such an interesting conversation, wasn't it?
So one of the other sort of definitions of peer support, which is the one that kind of interests me, is like where you're sitting almost, you're utilizing your experience to support your peers. So for me, I can take what happened to me a few years ago and sit down with someone who's going through something similar and just say, look, I've been where you are, you know, talk me through what's happening, and then I can talk to you about how I got through it and everything else. So I did a peer support qualification. I'm now considered, I've got a qualification in, makes me an expert by experience.
Yep. And you're our resident expert by experience. You're our peer support experts, Paolo. Yeah.
But I wanted to do more, which is why I'm in the sort of process of completing a level 2 qualification in counselling skills.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very much about, I think we spoke about this at the end of Tuesday night, that I'm very much about the sort of Rogerian, this is Carl Rogers, look him up, very interesting guy. Carl Rogers' approach to therapy was, so he was considered a humanist, I believe, and he created and championed the person-centered therapeutic approach, which I think builds on the kind of peer support approach to counselling. So it would be pretty much like me and you are doing right now. We're talking, but we're talking as almost equals. Now, obviously, there's still a client therapist distinction, but the idea of person-centered therapy is to do as much as possible to break that down, to sort of move it aside, because Carl Rogers rightly believed that when someone feels they're talking to someone who's genuine, who actually cares and understands about them at a personal level, the rate of progress is so rapid compared to other forms of therapy. And like I said, I can talk ad nauseum. I do it for 3 or 4 hours straight on a Friday night when I'm doing role play, when I'm doing collaborative storytelling with people. And I've always found that just in those conversations, people tell you the craziest things. They tell, oh, I've been through this, and you're like, wow, okay. And then if you keep listening, one of the main skills is active listening. So you keep listening to, just listen to them. They'll not only tell you what happened, they'll tell you how it's affected them, how they're going to overcome it, and then they'll outline everything, because people have got, most of the time, they've got the answers in them.
Yeah, we said this, didn't we?
They just need someone to get it out and like act as a sounding board. Yeah. So, my plan to essentially be of service is I do want to, and I will be qualified in the new year, that I want to launch a talking therapy service, an affordable one, because there are a lot of private clinicians, but I'm, at the risk of sounding a bit controversial, I'd say the vast majority, and I mean the vast majority, they're not affordable. Yeah, and let's be honest as well, they're guys and girls of great qualifications, but how much lived experience do they have? It's there's a difference. I think what people are looking for, you hit the nail on the head. They want to experience you actually care about me, right? And I think there needs to be a different approach to therapy, where it's 50 minutes to an hour, and at this time I'm going to cut you off, right? And it's like, sometimes I think you need to have a bit of understanding that some sessions could finish earlier and some sessions might finish later. And I think that there needs to be that kind of understanding between people, which there isn't in the private industry at the moment. Because one of the things I'm seeing, and this is the gap, this is the gap I want to try and step into. So what I'm seeing is, if you are referred via the NHS route, you're going to get 6 to 8 weeks max. And in the nicest way possible, you ain't going to get through anything in 6 to 8 weeks. No. If you are seriously, if you have had a lot of stuff go wrong, one session over a week, over 6 to 8 weeks, you're not even going to scratch the surface. No. You're literally you're going to have a plaster put on whatever's happened to you, and then a little slap on the bum, and out the door you go. Good luck, kid. Pretty much. And then here's some drugs. Here's some drugs that you can take. They'll make you not be able to function properly during the daytime, or potentially make you more suicidal, which is crazy. I have very strong opinions about prescription medication, which we'll get into that another time. We don't need to talk about that right now. But the private practitioners, if you've gone to them, it's because you need to see them long term. Now, the last time I was working with someone privately, I did well to find someone who was only 45 quid an hour, and that was 2 years ago. So he's probably 55 now. Yeah. 55, 60 quid an hour. Now, look, I've lived here virtually my entire life, right? Luton, is my home. But the stark reality is, we're not the most affluent town. Yeah. We're not. We've got areas that are incredibly well off, but that's not most of the town. And a lot of people that need help just cannot afford 50 quid and up an hour. Mm-hmm. Now, look, if you want to make money doing whatever, that's cool. I'm not here to sort of crap on capitalism. You do you. You want to support a lifestyle. for me, I kind of resign myself to the fact that I'm never gonna have a lavish lifestyle. I don't want a lavish lifestyle. I would find it intensely boring.
Yeah.
It would be the worst thing that could probably happen to me. You know, I want to be working frontline with people, and when I'm not doing that, I want to be writing my next novel. You know, I always have to want to be doing something.
Yeah.
So this is why I want to sort of offer myself as, yes, I'm going to be working privately, but I'm going to be a lot more affordable.
A lot more affordable and a lot more personable.
And a lot more personable.
Yeah.
Now, because
Yeah,
I think
that's important.
one of the things we spoke about was I don't think I could get a job looking at it. I don't think I could get a job doing counselling for the NHS, for example, because the level of qualification they want, I'm never going to achieve.
Yeah.
Not because
it's a lot.
Not because I can't.
No.
It's just years. It's
Yeah,
years of studying.
You want to help people now.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
You know, I'm 41. Like, I don't want to go back into full-time education. I can't go back into full-time education. I have a mortgage to worry about.
Yeah.
So, for me, I feel that. I mean, look, if you want to go that deep, because you're going to get into like psychoanalytics and that kind of thing, do that level 4 qualification. For me, I feel like the level I'm going to be studying to is sufficient, and the sort of service I'm going to, because I'm not here to diagnose your problems. I can't go into like the meat of what's going on up here and tell you you've got this, and this. You need to speak to this person. Here's some drugs. I'm not there to do that. What I want to do is sit down with you in a conducive environment and just say, let's talk.
Yeah, no,
what's going on?
No, for real, man, I love that. I think we're about to run out of time, but we'll get you back again so we can talk about the second book, because we didn't get to talk about that. But you know, mate, this is how it's going to be. This is why I enjoy talking to you, because there's so much that we've got to talk about, and there's so many areas that we can focus on. And you know, I love you being in the group. You're such a cool person, and you've really helped other people, even if you don't know it yet. People have come to me and said, "Oh, I really like Paolo," and they've mentioned you specifically. So, you know, we're very privileged to have you in our group as our lead-in peer expert. That is a title I'm dishing out because it makes us sound great and makes you sound great. But no, in a totally serious sense, you do loads for us, and we're very appreciative. And we just want to put you out there more and more. So if you could tell people where they can find you, where they can find your book, your website, all of that stuff, you could just shout it out to the camera.
So I have a website. I'm going to have to spell it out because people are going to just trash my name. So
they're going to have it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere,
yeah, so it's paolotrepiccione.com. So that will tell you about my novels, because there's going to be several. It will tell you a bit about my peer support stuff, and just basically about me. I'm on Facebook under myself. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to find me on LinkedIn. I'm still trying to figure out what the point of LinkedIn is, but it's there, and I'm on there. I think that's about it. Yeah, I do have a separate Facebook group that's just to do with the book, but I'm gonna basically merge that with my normal Facebook profile, because I don't post anything on Facebook unless it's to do with the book or peer support
so
stuff.
you may as well just have it all in one place.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Because I don't want to manage multiple accounts. It's
trust me, man,
it's tiresome.
It's a nightmare. We know it.
Yeah,
we know it.
There is a newsletter so I'm registered under a small publisher who put a newsletter out, and I'm kind of featured on that as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
But all the details, everything you can find my publisher, you can find me, you can find links.
We'll put it all up in the description.
Yeah, links where to buy my book.
It'll be flashing up on the screen at different times, or it'll be in the intro.
Yeah.
Trust me, these guys, Two Side Studios, they work some magic.
Can they superimpose the book here?
Yeah, that's the one thing. Paolo had literally a day.
Do that again?
It's here.
Yeah, you gonna actually do that?
As if by magic,
Brilliant,
my book will appear
there you
here.
Go. Oh my God, it was right there. I can't believe it.
I've dropped it.
Oh. Skills and fantasy world you've inhabited and brought to life here on this very stage. Well done, Paolo. But no, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for coming in and doing this.
Finish telling them how you sprung this on me with the day's
notice. Oh yeah, so we was literally just sat, and I found out that the person that was gonna come here cancelled. just like very last minute. And I asked Paolo with about a day, and then I forgot to message him until this morning.
Yep.
And this morning I
Yep.
said, "Are you still good to
Yep.
do this?"
I
And here he
I
is.
was sitting there this morning going, has Wade forgotten? I bet he's forgotten. And then you messaged me, and I was like, yeah, okay. And I misunderstood. I thought this was just going to be an audio recording. So normally I look a lot more presentable than what I do at the moment. I don't look like a scrub all the time. I just didn't have
You
a
should
lot
see
of
him
time
on
to
the
prepare.
Tuesday groups. He's beautiful. He's gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm like a Greek god, albeit a sort of pasty, slightly overweight one. But
All right, dude. Thank you
Yeah,
so
man.
much, bro.
Sick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you, man. Hey, I love you, Luton. See you later, people. Woo, that was good.